Hey, it's Justin Goff. I'm here with Copy Accelerator member Jamie Lynch. And today we're going to talk about how Jamie went from being a personal trainer who was underpaid and waking up at 5 a.m. every morning to now being a copywriter who works only a few hours a day and makes anywhere from 10 to 20K a month. And he did this in a relatively quick span of time. It only took him less than 6 months to kind of get up to that first 10K. And he's been doing this for 2.5 years now. So a pretty impressive story from a copywriter kind of going completely from a totally different job to what he's doing now, and really just kicking ass at it. So, Jamie, let's start with how you got into it. So you mentioned to me before we did this that you were a personal trainer. How was that going, and how did that feed into copywriting?
So I'd been running my fitness business. So I had an in-person boot camp business that I'd been doing for about 2 years at this point when I started taking on clients as a copywriter. Before that, I'd actually had my own offer online. So I decided to become a personal trainer and thought I'll go to personal training school and get the certification. And while I was waiting to do that, I was like, well, I'm going to need clients, so I'll figure out how to do that. And I within about 3 months of just making that decision, this is going back about 5 years now. Within about 3 months of making that decision, I had a funnel up and running on Facebook, and I was getting sales calls every day. So I was on the phone every day selling people my fitness program. And then that was kind of what I did. And I scaled that to, at the time, I was putting $1 in, getting $3 out. And my choke point was the fact that I was on the phone. And then Facebook decided to kill my ad account, and I was like, overnight I didn't have any money, didn't have any income, and then kind of fought around for about 6 months while I tried to figure something out. And that's when I launched the in-person bootcamp stuff. Had to start getting up at 5 a.m. every morning, and then over the course of that next 1 to 2 years, I was like, I don't like getting up in the crack of dawn. It's not what I consider a fun way of living. And I had this experience with marketing and with copy, and I'd been learning about marketing and copy from using in my own businesses. So I ran all the ads and that sort of stuff. But I fell more in love with that. So when I was doing the previous businesses I had, I was always listening to podcasts about fitness and marketing. So decided to give the fitness stuff a shot. That was fun, but fell in love with the marketing more. And then copywriting became more of an opportunity. When where are we now? 2021. So 2018, 2019, something like that. I was did a little apprenticeship with Matt Fury for 3 months on email copy, and that's kind of what spurred me on, I suppose. So I started using those copy skills in the bootcamp business to kind of sharpen my skills a bit. Although looking back, I didn't really do a very good job of that, I don't think. So it was definitely a start. You know, it was that was one thing I really appreciate having, was a sandbox to play in and not really be afraid of screwing up. Because I didn't know that my copy sucked at times. I was just like, I'll just put it out there. So but yeah, and then got into copy back end of 2018, if my maths is correct, if that's 2.5 years ago from now. I think it is.
So I want to go back to when you were a personal trainer, and kind of the early mornings, and I'm assuming you kind of got to the point where it was just like dreading getting up. I don't really want to do this. It's not what I want to. I'm not looking forward to it each morning. A lot of people wind up kind of just staying in that. So I'm kind of interested what was kind of like the breaking point that spurred you to make the move.
I'd physically moved location to about 30 to 40 minutes further north from where the business was located. So I used to get up, I'd start training clients at 6 a.m., but I lived a 5-minute walk from where I did that. So I could get out of bed at 5:45 and be training clients bleary-eyed at 6 a.m. And then add in the 30 to 40-minute commute now, I had to get up earlier to make sure that I was there on time. And I'm not a morning person. So to do that wasn't, why would I do that in the first place? Well, I needed to make money. And I knew that that was a business that I could just get off the ground in a short space of time. And that's exactly what happened. That went to about the £4,000 to £5,000. So that'd be like $6,000 or $7,000 a month at the time with the conversion rate and the exchange rates. That went to that sort of space in about 6 to 8 weeks.
Oh.
But that was all fine. It was great, like earning a living again, and things were nice until that became routine. And then like I said, I did this apprenticeship with Matt Fury at the start of 2018. And in that summer of 2018, I was like, I've just had enough of this, getting up and driving up and down the same road every day, getting up at an hour I don't want to be getting up at, because I'd go and train my clients. I'd come home and I'd just be in bed all afternoon because I was knackered. And then I had another class in the evening, which I had someone else teaching for me, but I still had to be responsible for it. And I just didn't want to do that. It was like the best part of my day was spent in bed, which wasn't really that great. So I remember I bought a course from another copywriter, copywriting educator, copywriter, whatever you want to say, about getting clients. I was like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to figure this out. And because I just don't want to get up in the mornings at that time. That was literally probably the break. It probably just repeated Monday to Friday, 4:45 a.m. ding ding, alarm going off, 4:45 every a.m. I just I don't want to do that anymore. And long term, I was like, that's just not where I saw myself. I've always worked for myself. I've never really had a job working for anyone else, and I knew that I could. I knew I enjoyed the marketing side of it more than I did the coaching. I had great fun training my clients, but what really fired me up was tinkering with the Facebook ads and writing their ads and writing the emails each day, even though I didn't really know what I was doing at the time. I was just doing it. So I was like, why don't I figure out how to do that, but on a full-time basis?
So, all right. So you made the jump to copywriting. I'm kind of curious, what's kind of the first dollar you made from copywriting? So you're obviously doing stuff on your own, running ads, all like that. But when you actually started writing copy for clients and stuff, how did that first job go? How did you get that?
Cult of Copy jobs board.
Nice.
As is, stalked that for a bit, and I landed a gig for $150 where I had to go through a webinar. So it was about a 2-hour webinar that I had to trawl through to get the hooks to put into like a sort of a show up and purchase sequence for the emails to go with it, and a couple of Facebook ads to go along with that. So I think it was 5 to 7 emails and like 2 or 3 different ads. So did a couple of those gigs for $150 a pop, which was fun. And then I'd seen a guy over here in the UK, a copywriter, that had offered to. He'd put out an email. He's quite a character, this guy, and he put out an email saying that I want this thing, and that was a Remarkable tablet. I've got one of those underneath my desk now. A Remarkable tablet. I want this. If you'll buy it for me, tell me what you want. So he kind of put this email out. It's like, what do you want in exchange for what I want? And I wrote an email saying, hey, I'll buy this for you. Like, what's your address and all that sort of stuff, and put out my pitch. And that was, you're a copywriter. You know how to get people to earn money from copy. You've helped other people do that. Can you help me do that? And that was kind of a catalyst, because it was the first time I'd ever got something from a copy, because by that evening, I'd spent my next month rent money on this random guy's Remarkable tablet. So I had to figure out how to pay my bills at the end of the next month. But one of the things he did was give me his course on copywriting, and I went through that and listened to it. And one of the things he said was go to events, meet people in person, and go from there. That make relationships, which there was an event that Matt Basak was putting on in London at the time. So I paid the little bit of money that I had left. I mean, I did have a little bit of savings, but not enough to cover my bills really. And went to that, and I landed a gig for, I'm having to do conversion rates in my head here. So about $2,800 to write a webinar sequence, emails, and like a promotion there. So that was fun, because I was like, well, this guy believed in me. I should be charging more than $150, so I'll ask for this much. And from that, things kind of started to move in the right direction, which was cool. So that's back in 2018 there.
Right. So from that point, did you continue to take on other clients? How did that work? Did you work deeper with that one client? What was kind of the process from there?
Yeah, so that gig that landed me about the 2,500, 3,800 one-off thing led to a retainer for £1,500 a month. But we also launched, or they launched a business, him and his business partner, they launched a new offer in the agency world. So catering to agency owners, sort of like PPC agencies, that sort of stuff. And they launched this new offer and I got equity on it. So if we did well, it went great for me. So I did that. And at the same time, I the course that I mentioned before, what the how to get clients as a copywriter course. One of the bonuses I got of that was a little bit of coaching with the offer owner. And at the end of it, I said, "Do you know anyone that needs any copy?" And he referred me to someone. And at the same time, back in the 2018, I got a full-time in-house position, which is how I came to interact with you guys because you knew the business owner. So that all kind of came together at the end of 2018. So I got that in-house position, landed the retainer with the equity if things went well, and I was still running my boot camp in the mornings. So instead of sleeping in the afternoons, I was having to write copy, bleary-eyed and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, that's where we are there.
So I want to get to that in a second, the kind of the work you're doing, Mike. But first, let's go back to that first year as a copywriter is a real struggle for most copywriters. It's like you're drinking from a fire hose. You just kind of just shoot back and forth between thinking like, oh, I kind of get this, or I'm a freaking idiot. I have no idea what I'm doing. Like it's just a whirlwind of emotions. What was kind of big struggles for you in that first year?
So I took that in-house. So this would be the back of 2018 into 2019. I took that in-house position, and I know I didn't really want to work full time. So that was definitely a full-time role. But I also knew that I'd get a lot of exposure to writing a lot of copy fast through that. And as a result, I definitely realized how much I needed to sharpen my skills because up until that point, I'd been dealing with people that were like, oh, yeah, we've looked through these samples. We think this is great copy, but they didn't know anything about copy. And that's not any disrespect to them. It's just I can look back now and think those samples were rubbish. So, and then all of a sudden I've got like a copy chief and I've got other people involved in the process and there's compliance and, oh, that's why my Facebook ad account got shut down all those years ago because apparently not able to say this stuff on Facebook. And there was all this stuff going on. So I was turning in projects and then getting them back. And it was hideous to look at the Google Docs because I remember one specific Google Doc that I opened up. I poured myself into this. This is my first sort of like VSL that I'd written. And it was in the Make Money Online leash. So it was like I think it was a 20, 25-minute VSL, something like that. And I opened up what I thought was like the finished piece after the copy chief had been through it. And I don't know if there was a single line that wasn't highlighted or suggested edit or something changed. I was just like, I can't do this. I don't want to do this anymore. I just, no, this isn't for me. I've since learned that that's pretty much how it feels every time you open up a copy doc because you want it to get better. So I embrace that now. I've had to, that's one thing I think, because I do a little bit of coaching of copywriters. And the one thing I try and help them to realize now is it's like, it's all part of the process. It's like when I came into Copy Accelerator, it's like all of a sudden I'm all these, what at the time felt like flaws in my copy were being highlighted and it's hard and it's uncomfortable, but actually it's like, well, unless I embrace it, I'm never going to get better at what I do. So that was definitely the one of the biggest challenges was learning to cope with that because it can be hard, I think, if you're not prepared for it. And I don't think we really, well, I wasn't prepared for it. That especially that one I just mentioned where there was this, thousands of words crossed out.
And yeah, because you're in very much, you're in this vulnerable position. You're scared to death that you're not doing things good enough. You put the copy out there and it gets shredded apart and we all have a tendency to take it personally, like it's something wrong with us. I mean, I can fully relate to that. I kind of understanding that has helped me in my critiques a little bit. Because when I first started doing them, I would always just highlight all the stuff that is wrong. Now I try to be pepper in a lot more stuff like, oh, you did this really well, you did this really well. Um, I know just from my experience, because a bunch of the people that I originally kind of helped, I remember came back to me and said like they thought the email they wrote or the copy they wrote was terrible because everything I said was just wrong. And I'm like, yeah, but like all this stuff was right. They're like, yeah, but you didn't say anything. You didn't say that was right. So I just kind of like took it for granted that they understood that that part was like good. So now I'm a little more apt to give praise when people do stuff, and it definitely pays off. But yeah, I mean, that first year as a copywriter is, like I said, it's a whirlwind of emotions. You're pinging back and forth between thinking you have no idea what the hell you're doing. Am I in the wrong profession? I can't see myself doing this. Then something kind of works and you're like, oh, maybe I do know what I'm doing. And then, yeah, like you said, you get shredded on something you wrote and you're just questioning everything in your life. So yeah, I think it's a great lesson for newer copywriters. The beginning is tough, no matter what, and especially if you're doing in a high level, if you're working in-house with a place that has copy chiefs and other good copywriters. But those are the type of people who learn really quick, though, because you get better very quick when you're getting real feedback from copywriters who know what they're talking about.
Well, I noticed as well it was being exposed to not just my copy, but seeing other people's as well, and seeing how what's working from their perspective on the projects that they're working on, and then working as a team. Like I wouldn't take that away what I did. I wouldn't do it any differently, because firstly, made some great friendships from it, and secondly, like the team that I work with, we've all gone on to do really well in our own way. It's been mental to see some of the guys and what they've achieved, and it's like it's inspiring. And what's kind of cool actually is like the Copy Accelerator last year in Vegas was the first time we'd all met in person, like because we're used to doing the whole Zoom thing. And then like it was just they were all there and it's like, oh man, you're way taller than I expected, or what's going on and stuff. It's like it's been cool to see that, and to be exposed to copy. I mean, we're exposed in Copy Accelerator to each other's copy to a certain extent. You make friendships in there. It's like, oh, can you check this out for me? But to be working day in and day out with people and getting that as a sounding board, that was really powerful. Looking back now, I wish I'd made more of it, but I say I wasn't the same copywriter as I am now. I'm 2 years further on. So I'd like to think my copy's better now anyway, but
that's one thing I actually want to dive into, because you joined Copy Accelerator in 2019 with the company you were working for put you and Jonathan Boyd and Jared Harlan, and I think there might even been one more person into the group so that so you guys could get your copy critiqued and looked at. I remember when you initially came in, there was a lot of work we had to do on your copy. Like you had decent like starting chops. But I remember it being a big kind of like struggle for you initially. And there was just a lot of edits, and we'd kind of give you feedback and come back with like the same thing. It felt like kind of making a lot of the same mistakes over and over again. But I remember very, very quickly, I don't know if it was maybe 6 months later, 8 months later, Steph and I can't remember. We read something of yours, and I remember being like, "Holy shit, this is pretty good." And from there, I felt like something clicked for you within that year, because your copy just exponentially got better. I'm not sure exactly what it was, but I'm curious if you kind of remember something kind of clicking 2019ish for you.
I remember that process, and I do remember the first few months. Like I was actually looking at your emails because I was on your list at the time when you were talking about it. And I was doing the sums. I was like, can I afford to join this on my own? And it was basically like, well, yeah, if I didn't want to eat or live anywhere. I fortunately, the company put us into it, which was insane because all of a sudden I've been exposed to like this. I didn't know half the stuff existed that you guys were talking about within the first like 30 minutes of the first call and stuff. I'm like, well, leads should be, there's this different type of leads. It's like, we can test that. There's this. And I'm like, whoa, it was cool. So I think just being able to absorb all that information over those first few months of Copy Accelerator, and then put it into practice. Like an upsell project would come, and I'd be like, actually, I really want to take on that now that we've been through the upsell trainings. This is within the company and stuff. Or we'd be testing out new funnels, and it's like, well, just having that knowledge that I can get advice and sound it out with the guys in that I'm working with, but then I can come to you and Stefan and say, right, here's like the draft, or here's a mechanism. Can I get some input and things like that? Like just the repetitions of that, I think, is what really helped, because that gave me confidence when, all of a sudden I'm starting to see a bit more traction with stuff, and just constantly going inside Google Docs and churning out stuff that just, I don't know if it made any sense, but sometimes, it just seems to click. So I think it's the whole Arnold Schwarzenegger, reps and sets sort of stuff for me. And I still believe that now. Like the more I just stay in the groove, I'm not someone that's there like head down at 7 a.m. writing. It's just not how I work. But I know just the consistent practice of doing the work is yielding, reaping rewards. That's the phrase I'm looking for. So
Let's talk about that for a minute, because before we got on the call, you were mentioning how you work probably somewhere around 4 hours a day, and for you, this is definitely kind of a lifestyle thing. It's the writing kind of fuels everything else that you want to do in your business. Tell me a little bit about how you kind of got to that point and how you're able to knock that out in just kind of like 4 hours.
I think it's definitely come down to the kind of projects I've looked for. So I started through a previous copy mentor. So that's one other thing that I did early on, was as soon as I could afford to, I had yourselves, and then I had someone else like one-on-one to coach me, that I could get more personal and more attention from, basically, because I just knew that it'd be handy. And that person, that Mike, his name is Mike Samuels over here in the UK, we formed a friendship, and as a result, we've started our own little copywriting, copy chiefing sort of service. So Mike's got a course, and we have our own little program that we run alongside that as like an upsell. But the point I'm getting at with that is having that as like a base, so I can go in there and for one or 2 hours a day, kind of, it's about 1 hour a day, on top of the calls that we do every other week, that's all my bills covered. So like, I don't need to worry about money beyond that. And I'm not saying it's earning me millions or anything like that. It's not, but it's my bills covered. So I can focus on other stuff in my life. And then being able to take on projects that I know could have better payoff, or work with different clients. Like I work with some people inside Copy Accelerator, and it's all done on a performance basis. But it works because I have that basis there from which I can build. And since then, I've added a retainer to that as well. So again, it's like, okay, I've got a decent, it's for $4,500 a month retainer to write a few emails every week. And that again adds to where I'm comfortable, and I don't have to work any more than that if I don't want to. The other stuff's kind of like the icing on the cherry on the cake. So for me, having that firm foundation makes the other stuff a lot simpler, because I can then move at the pace that I want to move at, not at the pace where projects are feast and famine so much. That's probably the phrase I'm looking for there. So early on though, the goal has always been to work fewer hours, because there's stuff outside of work that I want to focus on. So that was always where my head was at. Like, okay, I only want to work a few hours so I can focus on the things that are more important to me, and I'll figure the rest out in between through just moving forward, I suppose, one step at a time. And those opportunities presented themselves as I move forward. It wasn't like I ever had this grand dream of having this little business here and a retainer there and these other bits. It's kind of just occurred.
Right. And it's kind of a good mix that you have. Like I know a lot of copywriters like that of having, okay, I have this going every month and that's going to like pay my bills. And then maybe I could do some more performance based stuff or bigger projects on the side of that have bigger potential for upside kind of payoff. One thing I know you've done a good amount of is doing a lot of upsell projects. Are you doing those on or kind of performance based for a lot of them?
For the majority, yeah, it has depended. So for last year, I was on retainer with a publisher, and it just whatever needed doing. But there was also performance built into that. And the biggest wins we had were on upsells. I think I beat their control on one of them by like 93% or something, which was pretty awesome. Added $26 in AOV. That's my like. I'll keep flying that flag. But since then, yeah, other upsells. So one of the recent ones that I told you guys about inside Copy Accelerator, I think we beat it at the time. It was 133%. I beat it by very small. Like it's not like it's doing hundreds of sales a day and stuff like that. So it's still a cool win. But that's leveled out at about 90% right now. And now we're looking at the rest of the upsell path, and that's all performance based. Other stuff, I've now newer projects that come along in that arena, like upsells and that. It's more a case of me through the training that I've got from yourself and from Stefan and other members inside Copy Accelerator. It's a case of kind of diagnosing what's going on and then thinking what makes the most sense. Yep. So, for instance, I was negotiating an upsell project the back end of last year, and ideally performance would have been the way to go, but we realized that we just weren't going to be able to get the numbers in quick enough to figure it out. So I just created a fee that I was like, if I could get that, I would be well happy. Like that's more than I've ever asked for this sort of thing before. Performance bonus wise, it probably wouldn't even match. It might be around that figure, but the publisher, I put it to them and they were well happy on their end. So that was, and again, but that's because I've been able to get some of those wins under my belt. But another sort of brand that I've got a few offers, I'm talking about just doing beat the controls on that, performance based, because I've kind of got a formula that's working for me. So I'm just trying to milk it for all it's worth at the moment. So
nice. I mean, no, it's brilliant. Like if you got something that's working, if you know how to go in and fix upsells, like just keep finding new people to go fix their upsells. Like don't if you got something that's working, like don't try to go figure out something else. Just keep doing the same thing over and over. One thing I really want to point out is how you're looking at this as a strategist and not just a copywriter. That's a thing a lot of copywriters fall into. It's like they get an email, they're like, hey, we need you to write this sales letter, boom, 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 here's, and then they go and they write it, they get paid. You're turning this not into just copy, but strategy, where you're coming in and saying, all right, I know you think you need this fix, but I looked at your upsell and we could get a huge boost on upsell one. Let's fix that. And that all really comes from understanding really how the whole funnel works, where the money is really made, and being able to diagnose what the biggest opportunity is. Because they might think they need a new lead or a new sales page or new ads, but you might look at the first upsell and be like, this is a pile of shit and I could beat this by 50% with my eyes closed. So let's fix that and get the AOV up. So yeah, I really want to point that out because it's so smart, because so many copywriters are just copywriters. And there's a big difference between copywriters who can write copy and copywriters who are also strategists, because the strategist is so much more valuable. And what you're kind of doing, helping the companies grow. And as you said, they're super happy to pay it. If you're getting them wins, they're going to do that deal all day.
Mm-hmm. I think it's definitely a skill I'm trying to develop as well, because I actually enjoy that side of it. I'm not a big fan of writing front ends and doing everything there. It's like, since I've learned your AirLife method and the other bits and bobs that we've learned inside Copy Accelerator, it's like I actually prefer everything like after they've clicked on the buy button on the sales page. Like,
me too.
Check out page onwards. Yeah, it's like I can write an upsell in a day that I know is going to convert. I can't write a sales page in a day that I know that's going to convert. It's just I don't have that skill yet. And to be fair, if I could, then I'd be very busy, I think. So to be able to do it in a day. It's easier, isn't it, to work everything on those smaller things. So for instance, one of the upsells that's done well, we're looking at the rest of the funnel. And I was looking earlier on, I was like, I don't see the point in working on this third upsell at the moment, because it's just there's so little to be gained from doing so, that let's focus our attention here. Yes, I can tweak the headline and the lead a little bit to kind of adjust the promise, because we're already covering that elsewhere, but I'm not doing a full rewrite because it's not worth it. With the other wins we've got, the other wins we can are yet to get. So yeah, I do prefer it. And going back to what you said there, when I see the ads and stuff that could be performing better, I'm like, yeah, but where's the other easier wins that I want to do? So
Yeah, I mean, finding the easy wins, something. I mean, Steph and I always talk about, like, especially when you're a copywriter going in with a new client, like, they don't want to spend 7 months with you waiting for something to happen. Like, if you can just go get them a quick kind of win right out of the gate, their trust in you just soars, and you're going to get hired again, because, I mean, you're making that money, you're producing winners. They're down to do that. So yeah, I love that you're doing that now and being more of a strategist. And I'm the same way. Like, I love the funnel aspects and the strategy aspects of the funnel way more than I enjoy writing a 40-page sales letter. To me, it's just not as enjoyable. But then other people are different. Like, Stefan loves writing sales letters. I know other people who love just sitting down and writing. I'm much more like strategy and the tinkering with the AOV and how do we get a bump here. That's what kind of really lights my fire. So one thing I want to wrap up with here. So you've been doing this for a couple of years now. Got your income up to anywhere between 10, 20K a month. You're working a couple hours a day. You are living the dream over in England. Where does this go from here? What's the kind of next 6 to 12 months look like for you? Any different plans from deviating from what you're doing or staying on course? How's that look?
So I'm quite ingrained with a few, I say clients, but to be fair, we've been working together for so long. We're more mates than anything, which is nice. I like that. I don't really need to look elsewhere for work. So I'm working with them on certain things. So both are Copy Accelerator members and their businesses, and they're forming more partnerships in a way. So some are literally, we're partnered on projects, and that's all become possible because they've seen what I've been able to produce elsewhere. So we're doing that, and I'm exploring that avenue, which is fun. And we're just literally last week we had our first paid email drop on one of those funnels, and it didn't tank, which is cool. So so that looks promising. Where that will go from there, I'm yet to see. I'm also involved with the client I'm talking about there, or the friend we're talking. I'm helping them on their other funnels to get more AOV, bigger boosts on the upsell flows and stuff, which I'm enjoying. And I am actually doing a little bit more front end work, simply because I want to get better at that. Because I know when I get better at writing that copy, it would seem as I look back now, the better I get at writing tighter copy on the front end, the better my other copy has got. So I'm still sharpening those skills because I want to more than anything. So it's still a balance. To be perfectly honest, there isn't any grand vision. I haven't got everything right since I started, and I'm well aware that I've still got a lot to learn, and I'm enjoying that process. And I'm more confident now in the fees that I'm charging and what I'm asking of clients, and that's kind of fun. So it's a case of just, like I say, I've got my baseline, the retainer, and the other thing that I've got going on, the other business. And from there, just what comes along, seeing how things go. We'll see if the partnership projects continue to move forward. If they do, that's where my attention will go, because that will be where the biggest leverage points are. So yeah, that's kind of what's going on.
Nice. So I want to wrap up with the one question that I ask everybody who comes on here. So you've been a member of Copy Accelerator from the beginning. Let's say somebody's watching this, they've watched other videos of mine, they've heard about Copy Accelerator or Copy Accelerator Lite, they're considering joining, maybe they're on the fence. What would you tell them?
I can honestly say I don't think I'd be where I am now without it. So that is both. So I got put in there by a client, and then I had to join on my own sort of about 8 months later, because for whatever reasons. And at that time, I was like, I know I can't be without Copy Accelerator. And instantly it paid back. Like literally that week where I joined, I'd landed work. And I don't know if my retainer is the only thing that I haven't got through a Copy Accelerator, but the rest, that as a result of what I've learned through there, I'm beating their previous best months by 50% and stuff like that. So it's literally, it sounds like proper fanboy and cheesy, but I wouldn't be without it. So
Awesome, man. Love to hear that. Yeah, I mean, and it's been awesome to see your journey, to see where you started in 2019, and to see how much kind of struggle you had in the beginning, and to see where you're at now. And I mean, I looked at some of your copy the other day on Upsells, and I looked at some of your copy, the golf copy that you sent me. And I was just like, to see how far you've come in those 2 years is pretty mind blowing. Your copy is like top notch now, compared to where it was. So pretty amazing to see. Yeah, super proud of all the progress you've made, and you deserve it, man. You put in the work, and you deserve.
I've shaved my head to be more like you. I'm growing the beard, so I'm working on it. I need to get the glasses though.
It's part of the Copy Accelerator cult. There's many bald bearded men. Awesome, man. So yeah, appreciate you coming on. Appreciate you sharing your story. I think a lot of people are going to hear this and be inspired by what you've done. So yeah, really highly appreciate you coming on and sharing that, man.
Thank you. And thank you for all your help, my friend. Cheers.